Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. We are continuing down the experimental route of using air dry clay alongside Jesmonite to create all different things. Now, in the last video, I got so much love. Thank you so much. It is quite an exciting experiment that I did, and knowing that it works is just even more exciting. A couple of things to note is that the air dry clay doesn't dry out. Like I mentioned in that video, it's drier, but it hadn't dried out. So as long as you keep your air dry clay damp at all times, adding water as you go if you want it wet. And when you put it back in your airtight bag, it will keep. It will keep for as long as you make sure that it is always damp. So that was one thing to mention. I think some people thought it had completely dried out, and it definitely hadn't. The other thing to mention is that I have since tried this with Resincrete on air dry clay. Resincrete on air dry clay does not work. It does not peel away anything like Jesmonite. It's completely different. So that video is coming soon. I'm going to show you what I did, and I'm going to show you how I rectified it. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled and turn that notification bell on. Okay, for this one, we are going to be embossing this gorgeous leaf. Now, I got this leaf from a tree in my garden. I thanked the tree, and then I went around the back and I just clipped it off. These make absolutely beautiful embossings, and if you've got a fresh leaf as well, a nice fresh leaf, if you use like dried pressed leaves, sometimes they'll crack because they are quite dry. So I'm simply rolling out my air dry clay. I'm laying the leaf from my tree in my garden down into the air dry clay, and I am pressing really firmly over the surface as I go, and I'm also rolling slowly so that each and every gorgeous little detail of this, is it a leaf? Is it a twig? I don't know. Yeah, the detail gets pressed into the clay. Now, I've rolled my clay out really thinly. It's not fat at all. I want to say it's about 2 or 3 mils deep. Super thin. We are making an inlay. We're making an inlay for a tray. Now, if you saw my previous video that went up last night, that was my Shein silicone mold haul video. This is one of the molds that I got from Shein, and it is a chunky hunk of a beautiful beastly mold. It's the only way to describe it. I knew that I wanted to use this mold for this gorgeous embossed inlay, and I knew that I wanted to lay it down. So I've simply measured the inner area of the mold so that I can cut my inlay pretty spot on to what I need. And to cut it, I am simply using my rulers. I've got a metal ruler and a plastic ruler, and I am measuring it and then marking it and then measuring it again and then cutting it. So again, you can use a craft blade, you can use a clay blade, anything you want to use, you go for it, absolutely do. Now, the other thing to mention is I got a lot of messages from people saying that Louise Singleton had already done this. I spoke to Louise, we are friends. I spoke to her immediately and I said, you know, I'm so sorry, I didn't see that. You'd already used Jesmonite with air dry clay, and she hasn't used Jesmonite with air dry clay at all. What she's done is use real clay, and she's used Resincrete and other plaster of Paris materials, very similar to that TikTok that inspired me to try it this way in the first place. So please check out Louise Singleton, because guys, she has an entire playlist of working with clay and plaster, imprinting in the clay and then pouring plaster over the top, and that is going to be nothing but inspirational for us all when it comes to using air dry clay and Jesmonite. Now, I've cut out my air dry clay inlay and I am now placing it down into the mold. This is why it had to be thin. The air dry clay had to be really thin. I don't have much room to play with in these molds. When you get molds like this, the base of the mold is not usually that deep. You don't have much room. So I knew that if this was going to work, it could not protrude out and over the top of the mold, otherwise it would never be a tray. So I just made sure that when I laid it down, I pressed it firmly in place by pressing all around all of the edges. I had a bit of excess clay here, so I just ripped it off and made it good and kept on pressing down. Once I was happy that all of these edges were pretty much in line and in tune with the silicone, then I knew it was ready to mix and all was good. But I was absolutely loving this at this stage. Again, this mold is from Shein. If you missed that, I will link the video from last night. I'll link it here. Now, the next thing I decided to do is dust the air dry clay and the mold with a bit of brown mica. Now, one thing to mention is that Jesmonite, it does pick up mica powder. I've done videos on it. It does pick up mica powder. It doesn't pick up all of the mica powder. It's not like epoxy resin that would pick up every single last atom of mica powder. It doesn't. There's always some left on the mold afterwards, and that's okay. I just knew that it would pick up some, so it would give us this absolutely beautiful organic feel when we demold if the air dry clay comes out. So here I am, I'm simply dusting all over now. I'm speeding this up for you. You don't want to watch this in real time. Funnily enough, some areas of the clay took the mica powder quite intensely, and other areas I had to go back over it a couple of times to get it up. I then added some into the mold as well, but I'm not coating the whole mold. Now, 245 grams of Jesmonite liquid is what I poured into my bowl to create this mold. That was a bit too much. So 245 grams multiplied by 2.5 for your powder. And then I sieved my powder into the bowl again. Sieving the powder, I've been mentioning it now for a couple of months. If you've got Jesmonite AC100 specifically, I would 100% recommend sieving the powder. It gives a completely stunning, smooth result. There's no lumps, no clumps. Sometimes you can get powder clumps in Jesmonite AC100, which is a negative when you compare it to the likes of EcoPore or Aquacast, Resincrete. They are lump free. They are so watery smooth. You get no lumps whatsoever and barely any air bubbles, whereas Jesmonite AC100 is a much thicker eco-poring medium, and you quite often get air bubbles that come up, and then you'll also get powdery clumps. So always sieve your Jesmonite AC100. So we have mixed it. I'm keeping it in its rawest natural state. I'm not adding any colour to the Jesmonite, bar just a little bit of brown mica. Now, you can add mica powder into Jesmonite. It works beautifully. I've done videos on it. You can colour Jesmonite AC100 with mica powder quite intensely as well, but I just added a little bit. I wanted to take away the starkness of that whitey, that kind of creamy white colour, and just add a little touch of the mica in there just to dull it down a bit, make it a little bit more in line with the colour that I dusted on the air dry clay. So here you see me, I'm pouring from quite high up. I want the air dry clay to make its way into the complete embossing I want the Jesmonite to make its way into the embossing on the air dry clay, guys. Oh, my brain. And yeah, so pouring slowly is going to make sure that I do as best a job as I possibly can. And of course, I want that to work its way down the walls and into the rest of the mold. Now, I did have a little bit left over here, and I just put that to one side and poured it into a generic mold, just because I don't want to just pour that in the bin. But other than that, we were pretty spot on with the measurements. Now, to tap this, I'm simply lifting the base of the wood that it's sitting on and allowing it to fall back down to the table. You don't want to go too crazy with this one, because that inlay may be dislodged and then the whole piece is ruined. This is 30 minutes later. I was worried about the mold. I was worried about demolding this because it's such a chunky mold. It's not super squishy silicone, but it came away like a dream, and we have got ourselves a beautiful kind of product tray or perfume tray or incense burner with a little bit of potpourri next to it. Really, you could use it for anything. But guys, I panicked immediately because I could not get the air dry clay out. I was waiting for that bite. Do you remember in the last video I said there has to be a bite? Once it bites, it comes away. It peels back like a dream. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see this peeling back like a dream to reveal the most beautiful embossing cut straight from my tree 5 minutes before, and it is absolutely stunning. It is giving me kind of like Roman temple carvings, do you know, like in stone, that kind of earthy natural stone where people would carve pictures and do all of the things. That is what I was getting from this. I absolutely love this. I think this would work beautifully in a bathroom that had a really calm, neutral, stony, organic feel. Anyone else? Oh my gosh, guys, I absolutely love it. Now, there was a rim. You can sand this away. So there was a bit of a rim all around the inside, right at the bottom, where the clay left its indentation. And again, once you demold, Jesmonite is quite soft, so even just me going around with my fingernail, chiseling it away, was working. So what you would need to do is get a piece of sandpaper and just run that sandpaper in and around that edge to get rid of that rim. So there's a little bit of cleanup to be done, but nothing major, nothing that would ever put me off trying this technique. Now, I have started using my metal deburring tool with Jesmonite. Guys, works a dream. And with Eco as well. I've used it with Aquacast as well. Works a dream, an absolute dream. So much easier than sanding, so much quicker. 3 passes on each edge and we have got ourselves a beautifully smooth, rounded bottom edge with no more sharp edges. And recommend, highly recommend. I'm not sponsored by any deburring tool company. I'm just saying, guys, this tool is versatile. I bought it for resin. I'm now using it on Eco as well. And this tray is everything. So air dry clay. We've made an immediate instant inlay similar to the last video. It's unreal, like it's unbelievable. There's a bit of cleanup here in the corners. I've got some air dry clay stuck in, but remember, you can now soak this in water for anything like 10, 15, 20 minutes. Soak this in water, use an old toothbrush that you're no longer using, and just get the clay out of those corners. And yeah, this is what it's looking like. Let me know your thoughts. I absolutely love this one. We have got more videos coming, guys. We have got a silicone inlay video. I'd already filmed it. I filmed all of these on the same day. I had so many questions on whether we could make inlays with this technique, whether we can do this with this technique. It's all coming. So have that bell turned on. This video, we made an inlay to create this absolutely stunning leaf imprint tray. The air dry clay is still good. It has taken up a lot of that pigment, and that's okay. We'll just roll it all in together, put it back in the bag. I do spray a little bit of water in there as well, just to keep it moist, wrap it up in that bag, and then I twist the bag tightly closed, and then I put it in another bag. So I do double bag my air dry clay. It's still soft, still malleable, still damp, and make sure you keep it damp at all times. It won't dry out on you. But yeah, this is the tray and I am obsessed with it. I am so obsessed with it. This makes me wonder, could we put air dry clay in and around the walls of the entire mold and then pour Jesmonite? You know, would the walls then be embossed? Like, how else could we do this? What else could we do here? But yeah, let me know your thoughts. I had so many suggestions, like you should try polymer clay. Guys, polymer clay is not cheap. Like, this air dry clay is $4.99 for 1 kg. The polymer clay is nowhere near that. Polymer clay for me is a lot harder to use. You've got to condition it, you've got to work it before you can use it. Air dry clay is nice and soft and squishy, and it does all of the things. And at the moment, I'm really only experimenting with air dry clay and eco pouring mediums. So do let me know in the comment section down below if you want to go ahead and try what you're thinking, and let me know how that turns out. But for now, I won't be trying this with polymer clay. Maybe further down the line I will. I've definitely done some polymer clay bits and bobs. You would have seen that on my channel from last year. I made silicone inlays using polymer clay, so we know it all. We know it works. This is just very brand new for me, and I'm going to be using air dry clay and Jesmonite, and in a video or two's time we're going to be looking at this technique but using Resin-crete, and how it didn't work, why it didn't work, and how I rectified it. And then we're going to take a casting, and then from that casting we're going to make another casting for a silicone inlay, and then we're going to make a mold of our very own unique one-of-a-kind casting. It's all coming. I've been filming. If you are a patron, you will know I've been sharing all of my updates like 2-3 times a day. I've been bombarding my patrons with all of my updates of what I'm working on and whether it's worked or not. And yeah, so thank you to my patrons as well over on Patreon for all of your incredible input and advice and support. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to stop talking because this is a lot of talking, and you guys know I talk too much already. I will see you all in the next video. Bye.